Good evening. I will now call to order the Chesterfield Township Planning Commission meeting on April 16th, 2024. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Number 3 is roll call. I will call the roll. Mr. Miller is here. Mr. LaBelle? Here. Mr. Demink?
Here.
Mr. Leonard?
Here.
Mr. Renault?
Here.
Mr. Jaworski?
Here.
Mr. Klanowski?
Here.
Mr. Carr?
Here.
Mr. Brokart is absent. Approval of item number 4 is approval.
Mr. Miller, before we start, since we have a large crowd, could everybody silence your cell phones if you got them with you right now so they're not going off during the meeting? With a large crowd, sometimes we get that. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Approval of minutes of prior meeting. I will make a motion to approve the minutes of April 2nd, 2024.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Demink. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the agenda. I will make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6 is public comments. You can talk on any agenda item you want, but if you want to talk about the public hearing, you can do so during the public hearing for that. So if anybody else wants to speak, if not, public hearings. We have one public hearing tonight, rezoning number 372, requesting to rezone 2.84 acres of property located on the south side of 23 Mile Road and west of Sass from R1B residential one family to RM1 residential multifamily. Parcel ID is 1509221011016, and the address is 31450 23 Mile. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Demink. All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Osborne?
Thank you. So tonight, the Planning Commission is tasked with making a recommendation to the Township Board as to whether or not to approve this rezoning. So a little bit about the lot. The subject parcel is currently split zoned. The northern portion is RM1 multiple family residential. The southern half is R1B. The applicant is looking to rezone the southern portion to RM1. So the entire lot, if this rezoning were approved, would be RM1 multiple family. The RM1 district standards permit about between 6 and 7 dwelling units per acre. The site is located at the southwest intersection of 23 Mile and Sass Road. And for a site this size, if it were to be all RM1 and to be developed fully, it would permit up to 35 housing units. But that doesn't include things such as the setbacks, driveways, and landscape standards, so there might be a little less than that. Moving into page 3 of my review letter, where we're looking at the items for consideration for the zoning map amendment. The first item is whether or not it's consistent with the master plan. And so the request is not consistent with the master plan. The master plan's future land use map designates this area as medium density single family residential, which correlates with the R1A and R1B zoning districts. And the letter at the very bottom of page 3 has a little bit more of a description of the of the single family medium density area. And I just want to highlight a couple of things here. So it does note that the primary intended outcome of these areas is to provide single family housing. And again, that correlation with R1A and R1B zoning. And then it also goes on to say that areas designated as single-family medium density would have a housing density of between 2.2 and 3.4 dwelling units per acre. And so that's slightly different than what would be proposed with the RM1 district. I'll note that there is a existing development to the east, 2 parcels over, and that appears to be built out to 4.24 dwelling units per acre. The second consideration is the impact the development would have on public services, utilities, and natural features. So we just noted that the sewer is available to the site via 23 Mile Road, and that 23 Mile Road is already improved. There is a water main that runs along 23 Mile Road, and so there's possibility for the site to be connected via 23 Mile Road or via the lot to the east. And then one notable characteristic about the site is that a good chunk of it is wetlands. And you can see that at the map at the bottom of page 4. The third consideration is whether or not the applicant has provided evidence that the property cannot be developed or used as zoned. We haven't received any such evidence. We know that the northern half of the parcel that's currently zoned RM1 could have about 15 to 18 dwellings, and then the southern half could have 9 to 11 single-family homes. Item 4 asks about whether or not the proposed zoning district is compatible with the surrounding uses. And so the surrounding uses to the north, we have the northern portion of the lot, which as we've noted is RM1 multifamily, and then across 23 Mile Road, the lot is zoned C3 general commercial, which could have more intense uses. To the east, the parcel is also split zone with RM1 multifamily residential in the north, and that's where a daycare center is. Further south is R1B, just like the subject parcel, and that parcel is vacant. And then again, as I noted, the lot even further east than that is developed with duplex homes. To the south is R1B residential, and to the west is R1B residential with an office in the front along 23 Mile Road. Consideration 5 is about additional burden on nearby thoroughfares. 23 Mile Road and Sass Road are planned to handle an increase in traffic, and an additional 35 units may not be that impactful in the amount of traffic that's seen in that area, but you may wish to consider a full traffic study. Item 6 is whether there's other land currently available for this use. There are other parcels that are currently zoned RM1 throughout the township. There's a large undeveloped section east of the proposed site and south of 23 Mile Road. And there's some other parcels along 23 Mile Road west of the site that are already developed, but none in the immediate area that are already RM1. In terms of considering whether the proposed site will be able to meet the requirements of the RM1 district, we do have a concept sketch showing what the applicant is considering. It's unclear if the site will be able to meet all the standards based on that sketch, and so we would need a complete zoning permit plan to ensure compliance. Item 8 talks about whether or not rezoning would be the best way to address this. We don't have any reasoning from the applicant for the rezoning, so it's unclear really if a rezoning or a district amendment would be most appropriate. We did provide a list of uses, I believe it was in the packet, for the R1B versus the RM1 district. If you have questions about that, we can talk about that during the discussion. Item 9 just notes that there's been no changes to the property since the master plan was last adopted. And item 10 talks about spot zoning, and again reiterates that the request is not consistent with the future land use map, and that it really doesn't extend the request would extend RM1 into the area, and really with the only connection to RM1 being the piece that's currently north of it and northeast of the site. And then a question for the Planning Commission to consider whether or not this request, if granted, would provide a special benefit to the property owner. Thank you.
Is the applicant here and like to address the commission? Anybody that would like to address the commission, please sign in, state your name for the record. There's a sign-in sheet on the table back there, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. My name is Randy Walney. I live at 50766 Oaks Drive. I live, which will now be, I'll have a street in front, a street on the side, and a street right behind my property. I don't want the dead end to go through. Personally, we've all had our cars broken into in that sub. I don't want to see more traffic there. The two-lane road that SAS is now, and you're going to propose a gas station there. The traffic just on 23 is unbelievable. It wasn't like this when I moved out here in 2000, but when I moved into this sub, I did know that the land was supposed to be, the street continued through down the center and out on the 23. They had the other parcel where Rainbow Rascals was that originally owned that, but the person right behind me did not want to sell. So that's what we always knew. We always knew it was going to be developed. I would like to see homes, a regular home street with homes on it, not 20 to 30 to 50, up to 56 apartments maybe, or condos. I mean, I have a pool. It doesn't get much sunlight, but I don't want to be looking at a double-story apartment jammed in, either or. But the biggest thing is the street. I don't see why the street has to go through, maybe for what, ambulances and fires? Big deal. Our sub is one way in, one way out. Why can't this sub be, or street, sorry, one way in, one way out? I just personally don't want to see it happen. I mean, the last time I checked on that property was what? They was going for $326,000. Next thing I know, it sold for $175,000. And if I would have known that, we would have bought the property. We would have all bought it, but we didn't know that. So, but that's whatever it is with a realtor. I mean, if the guy's not here and they want to propose something, I think they should be here to explain themselves. I mean, because we're all homeowners right behind that property. That's all. That's all I got to say.
My name's Joe Cole. I live right next to Randy. He just got up here before me, but everything he said I completely agree with, and I think most of us here do. That's why we're here voicing our concern. But, you know, if you go back to page, I think it was 3 or 4, and you had the wetland map, I mean, that's a huge thing right there. I know it is. I know all of our sump pumps run, you know, 2-3 times an hour, you know, filling the storm drain back there. I know at one time they dug a basement next, I don't know if Scott's here. And they had to fill that in because it was too wet and it wasn't going to work. And it's the same scenario here. I think maybe they're wasting their time. I don't know. But the wetlands thing, that's a real thing. I mean, at any given spring, we can see 50 blue jays come through. I just went and took a video just moments before I came here. I'm on my property line. There's the condos. You can see it plain as day. You can see the condos, the roof, the windows, everything. It's like, and now we're going to jam more in there? I think it's a bit much. I just got wood ducks right there on the picture, you know. I mean, there's so many critters that come in and out of there. The bats, there's so many bats that are in and out of there, and some of those are protected. I don't know for sure which breed, but that's a real thing, and it's unlawful as far as I know. And I'm just on the side with Randy, where if I come out of my backyard and I'm right there at the grass, I seen the map and what they think they want to do. The road's going to be like 30 feet away from my backyard. So you got one road in the front, one road right in the back. And personally, I mean, biased or not, it's very tight. It's very tight. And nobody brought up the Meldrum drain that runs through there. And again, if you go back to your page 4, that Meldrum drain goes and cuts the corner right through that property. So I think there's a lot to that. And I don't think this guy would want this in his backyard. Like Randy says, if it was, there's 8 houses on that road, and they're looking to put 35? How do you get 35 and then we have 8? I mean, it just seems like quite a bit. So just please take it all into consideration, and, you know, I think we're all against it. You know, we're trying like heck.
Thank you.
You have to excuse me, I'm a little nervous because it's my first time I've ever done this, so, but this is important to all of us, right? That's why we took all our time to come out and sit down here and go through this, okay? The question I have for you guys is, what is the image that your city wants to look like, right? Do we want to look like Royal Oak, where everything is piled on top of each other? Well, that's not the reason that we moved out here. We moved out here 10 years ago because of the fact that we wanted to raise somebody in a country setting, our children in a country setting. They see all kinds of animals. We see hawks and falcons flying over. They're able to see deer. Our neighbor at one point put up lights, and we would watch the deer come through the woods, through the lights, which was very good for them because they loved it, every minute of it, right? So they got to see everything. It is a wetland area, okay? The biggest concern that we have, obviously, is taking down the trees, right? I mean, that's our biggest concern that we're here. It is a wetland area, okay? We're here trying to protect what we wanted to keep our image for, right? The whole reason that everybody is out here is because we want to live in the country, not Royal Oak, right? So that's our biggest concern right now, right? We want to use every square inch. As far as the traffic situation goes, if I may, can I play a video for you? Is that acceptable? Okay. So I want to play this video for you just to give you an insight. We've been here 10 years, okay? This is at 6 a.m. this morning. This is 6 a.m. You can hear the traffic. The traffic is so abundantly loud at this point that we actually spent extra money on a heating and cooling system so that we could cool our house in the summer, so we could keep the windows at a closed with an abnormal temperature in our house, okay? I know you guys are saying about increasing SAS, increasing 23 mile. I leave my house at 5:30 in the morning. It takes me not less than 10 minutes to make a left out of my subdivision currently, okay? That's my biggest concern right now. My other big concern is what is our future plan? You've got 30 houses going in down the street. You've got 100 condos down the street there, more apartments across the street. Are we gonna be able to fill all those houses? And if so, what's gonna happen with that traffic there? So there's a lot to consider here before we just arbitrarily say, yeah, go ahead and build homes and go from there. As the other gentleman said, with connecting the road, we have one way in, one way out. My children right now are freely allowed to drive all the way around the subdivision without supervision because everybody in here watches them. One way in, one way out. When you add that, we won't have that any longer. We'll be just like the little streets across the street that have 4 or 5 different ways in. And if you look at or speak to the Chesterfield Township Police Department, there is a lot more crime in those areas because they're much more accessible. So we've got some pretty big things to consider. So please take a moment and think of us as well as yourselves and of the image of what we want it to be.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nobody else wants to speak? I will then make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support?
We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Demink. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I'll bring it back to the commission. Mr. Demink?
A lot of things to consider on this with the wetlands and a narrow piece of property. I know we've had some other properties, just I believe it was east of it, they were looking at rezoning, and that never went either. Yeah, there's definitely, we got to look at that, especially with all the apartments that just went in down the street, which I wasn't for, but we lost on that one in a court case. So I'm good for right now.
Thank you. Mr. Renault?
Just a couple of things. One, for those that aren't aware, this is usually pointed out at the beginning of all these. We're all residents of the township as well, just so you know, and we don't run for office. So we all live in the community along with you. Here's our only voted-in member up here. But with that, one of the things we have to always take into account is the way the property is zoned right now. If the owner came to us and said, I'm going to put multifamily in the one part and I'm going to put homes in this other part, there's not a thing we could do to stop that, because that's the way it's currently zoned. Nothing we can do. Now, I will tell you, in this particular situation, I'm surprised that the owner didn't come in and address some of the issues on here, which is somewhat surprising, because there are a number of questions that we do have on this, but without getting answers, I don't have much to say. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carr?
No, I mean, because I think Mark Kenna, what I was going to point out was just the fact that as residents, and I've been there 25 years, I think most of us, if you've been here long enough and you moved around within the township, we all have at some point lived on property that was woods behind us. And then development does come in. When I came here in 2000 with a young family, I lived in Heatherwood Estates at 24 and Sass, and it was all woods behind us. And about 10 years later, they cleared all those woods and they built houses. My wife and I were upset, and that's why we moved to a different part of Chesterfield. I'm just saying it's development. We can't, unfortunately, we can't stop that. And so, I was just gonna point out what Mark said. I agree with nobody wants multifamily homes behind their property. So I do agree with that, and I am sensitive to that. But single-family homes he can build for sure, right? And so just keep that in mind. I mean, unfortunately, we all love the woods. So, but it is hard once it's already zoned something. But I definitely do agree with you, and I listened to it because we had a similar situation. Like I said, we decided to move and build another house in a different part of Chesterfield, with 4 kids in the district. But yeah, it is a sensitive thing, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Mr. Jaworski?
Yeah, I think when you strip everything out, just to reiterate what you said, we've got a lot of apartments down the road that we didn't approve. It wasn't consistent with the master plan. This particular request, they're not here to support themselves, so it's hard to really visualize what their vision is. Stephanie had pointed out a lot of open items that they did not submit to prove. So from that standpoint, I can't really see supporting this rezoning. I think we should just leave it as is.
Thank you. Mr. Klinowski?
Yeah, it's pretty well, everything's been covered. Yeah, I'm leaning real hard toward denial.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Yeah, pretty much everything's been, most everything's been talked about. It can be developed as is. To what extent, I'm not sure. Going back to the first gentleman that came up and said that we were going to buy it, a bird in the hand. I mean, looking back, the whole area could have came in and bought it, and it wouldn't even be here tonight. But that's then. This is now. We've all been in areas. When I built, same thing, was all woods. I kind of checked out what was on either side, where it was going to go, and then I built my house, but I built 2 other ones in the same subdivision. Yeah, I'm not really for changing it. It can be developed, and the way it is, and right now, that's the way I'm leaning it, to leave it the way it is, and eventually, if somebody's paying taxes on it, eventually somebody will want to do something with it. Don't know what and don't know when, but that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. Our future land map designates that entire area as medium density. That's correct, Stephanie? Medium density. And our medium density is equivalent to the R1A and R1B zoning. So, it doesn't comply with our future land map at all. And secondly, I just want to remind, two more things. I want to remind everybody that when it comes to a zoning change, we make a recommendation to the main board. And they have gone against us on a number of occasions. You're talking about some apartments that are on 23 Mile Road. We all voted it down, but it still went through because there was, they decided to do something different than what we had thought. So that leads me to my third point. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. We really do appreciate your participation, coming here and telling us what you really think and what you want. Because we, on many occasions, have made decisions based upon what we think is best, and we'd like to hear what you think. So thank you very much for that. And with all that being said, please plan on attending the main board meeting when this does come in front of them, so you can express your opinions, so that you can sway them like you're trying to sway us. Thank you, Mr.
Their
Chairman.
meetings are generally on Mondays?
No,
Tuesday.
second and fourth Tuesdays of every month.
So,
But it would have to be denied or passed from Planning Commission before it comes to the main board. That's where myself and the 6 other elected officials sit on, just so you folks know, okay?
Thank you. There is 30 letters here opposing the rezoning. That's on record. I too am not in favor of it because there's too much wetlands on that property, and I don't know what they're going to do with that wetlands. So I am opposed to it. But our normal procedure is to wait till our next meeting to vote, unless I hear a motion. So other than that, we'll see you in our next meeting, which is May 7th. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. Miller,
Yes,
I'd put forth a motion to vote on it tonight.
it's up to you.
I'd make that motion.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Sure.
Is that fair to the applicant? Maybe he's got car trouble, maybe he's got something else, you know, something could have happened. Is that fair to him?
Mr. Palin?
The applicant is here. He's chosen not to speak, so, I mean, it's up to the commission however they want to handle it. I mean, there's a motion to suspend the rules, so it's up to the commission at this point, however you want to move forward.
Okay. Mr. Renault?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to vote on this topic this evening.
Did you want to make a motion? Okay. He did.
Mr. Chairman?
We have a motion by, sorry. We have a motion by Mr. Renault, supported by Mr. Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, so it did not go through. Now, this is our recommendation to the board.
Paul, that was just,
Just for the vote.
that was to suspend the rules to vote tonight. Now there needs to be a motion
Okay.
on the,
So then I'll follow that up with making a
Okay.
motion to deny the request.
We have a
Mr.
motion
Chair,
by-
hang on. Remember, when you make a motion, whether it's to recommend approval or denial, you have to set forth your reasons with specificity. You can't just say motion to deny. You've got to give specific reasons why. It's got to be part of the motion.
My motion to deny would be based on the fact that we have a Giffel Webster's write-up here that have a number of items that need to be addressed, and they have not been addressed.
Nope,
So-
that's
so
not
it's
good
finally
enough. That's not
compliant.
good, that's not good enough. That's, adopting the planner's recommendation is not good enough. She's given you 8 or 9 different criteria to analyze. You may not agree with all 8 of them. You may agree with 3 and not 6, and there may be 2 or 3 of them that are dispositive. So you've got to look at the issues that you think are, that are significant enough to support your motion to recommend a denial of the rezoning.
Okay, then I'll make a simple motion to deny it based on the fact it doesn't meet the master plan's future use.
A motion by Mr. Renault, supported by Mr. Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, so it's been denied. Okay? On this one. But it still has to go to the board.
So, I'm not sure how they would. That's my 8.
Mr. Demink? Maybe I don't have to. I was just going to say, they wouldn't have, they'd have to have some way to know when, if that becomes an agenda item for the elected officials, but I think you might have just exchanged some information.
That, and you can watch our, watch the township website when it comes up. I don't know if won't.
the planning department coordinates with the applicants too, so they'll be aware when it's on the township board agenda.
It won't be on next week's agenda. It's too late for that, I believe.
No, it's usually the deadline for submitting items to the board are 3 weeks before the meeting, and we have to wait for the minutes, so it's typically about at least a month turnaround, but the agenda will be posted online. It's typically out a week ahead of time, so you won't get noticed on that like you did for the public hearing, but it will be posted online, so just keep an eye on the township website, and you can also sign up on the website for alerts that'll send you when the agendas come out.
I just wanted to add to that, the letters that came in, we all recognize and are aware of them, but fill that room. The letters are helpful, fill that room when that meeting comes up and let yourself be heard. So that's the advice.
Okay, thank you. Regular agenda, number 8. Our secretary, Rick, will do the items we can do under reviews. If you don't want to stay, you could leave, so we'll just take a 2-minute break. Could we? Could we please exit the conference room? Okay, Mr. LaBelle?
Item A is gasoline service station site plan 2024-05. It was previously approved as the come and go, if we all remember that. The site plan special land use is 2023-04. It's zone C3, 4.6 acres, the northwest corner of 23 Mile Road and Sass Road. The parcel ID is 15-09-15-300-049. The address is 31959 23 Mile Road. The applicant is here this evening. Ms. Osborne, if you want to go through the Giffords-Webster review, please.
Sure, thank you. So tonight in your packet, there's a letter dated April 5th. I'll just note before we get started that the applicant, that we received updated plans from the applicant this morning. There are some things that are probably tied up, loose ends, and I'll note those where I can, but we didn't have time to fully review. So just for your knowledge, I guess. Again, this is a special land use, so the applicant has provided a narrative that outlines the standards for special land use and their response to those. And the Planning Commission tonight is tasked with reviewing the plans and then eventually making a determination as to whether or not the site meets all zoning ordinance standards and their intent. So there's a couple of items here, again, that I noted for administrative review, or that could be done administratively, and then I'll really highlight the ones for Planning Commission discussion and consideration. So just as a little bit of background, the site is currently vacant, and it's on the northwest corner of Sass and 23 Mile Road. And the applicant's proposing to build a 4,425 square foot gas station convenience store with a patio on the northwest, again, on that northwest corner. The site includes 10 fuel pumps covered with a canopy. The dimensional requirements for the site have all been met. We did have one question about the location of the canopy above the gasoline pumps. The response letter that was submitted indicates that that information is now available to us, so hopefully that's been taken care of. All dimensional standards seem to have been compliant, other than that one that we'll double check. In terms of use standards, they've met all the use standards for a gasoline service station as well. So going to the bottom of page 4 of the review letter is really where the Planning Commission should direct their attention. The applicant's proposing to use fiber cement hardy board in 2 colors. The applicant has recently provided the percentages of each material for the facade. On the front facing 23 Mile Road, the facade will be 19% stone, 60% hardy board, and 21% glazing. And then on the side facing Sass Road, it would be 23% stone, 70% hardy board, 3% doors, and 4% glazing. So question for the Planning Commission is if this mix is acceptable for building materials at this site. Moving on to page 5, looking at parking, the applicant in their revisions provided the retail area and the number of employees, so we'll be able to check and confirm that they have the correct number of spaces. I'm sorry, I don't have that for you tonight. In terms of ingress and egress, you may wish to discuss with the applicant the location of the driveways, tapers, bypass lanes, so forth. They do have one ingress and egress both from 23 Mile and from Sass Road. They're both 40 feet wide and clearly marked. We did ask them about the bollards and fencing. They have proposed bollards along the front of the store, and the ones that are near the ADA accessible sites are in a yellow color to increase awareness. So that's one thing for the Planning Commission to consider if that would be acceptable. The applicant did confirm the distance from the curb that was in their response letter, noting that there really isn't a curb to allow for better accessibility into the building. So there's just bollards kind of in the sidewalk area between the building and the parking. There is currently no off-street loading and unloading areas. The Planning Commission may wish to discuss with the applicant if that's needed and where that could go. Bicycle parking has been provided, and it's they have 2 bicycle parking spots on the east side of the lot. There's a sidewalk that connects along 23 Mile Road and Sass Road, and a pedestrian crosswalk from the bicycle area to the building. The standards require that there be a 6-foot wide pathway connection, and the sidewalk that goes along 23 Mile and Sass Road is only 5 feet wide. So that's something that the Planning Commission may wish to discuss with the applicant if they would like to see that widened or not. The applicant did provide the height of the bicycle rack, and that meets the standards. In terms of pedestrian circulation, as I noted, there's the crosswalk from Sass Road by the bicycle parking to the building, but there's really no good way to denote where pedestrians should walk from 23 Mile Road to the building. So that's something that the Planning Commission may wish to discuss with the applicant tonight. All of the screening requirements have been met, tree preservation requirements have been met. The landscaping was updated to include a plant that's not fruiting. So instead of the American cranberry bush, they're proposing witch hazel, which is permitted. They have all the appropriate number of parking lot landscaping trees and frontage landscaping trees. The one thing that they are missing currently is an updated photometric plan. They're aware, based on their response letter, that is still needed and will be forthcoming. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this project.
Thank you. Is the applicant here would like to discuss anything with us? Yes. Please stand, sign in, state your name for the record.
Yep. Jamie Antonevich with Atwell, 12745 23 Mile, Shelby. We did send some slides to help kind of explain or discuss the transition from Come and Go to Maverick. So if we could kind of run through a few of those, that we can address any comments and questions on that. We have Dave here with Maverick who can kind of touch on some of that, and then I can get into more detail on the site plan questions and comments.
Thank you, and my name is Dave Lemons. I work for Maverick and Come and Go convenience stores. My address is 1629 Grand Avenue, Des Moines, Iowa. About a year ago, we were in front of you wishing to build a Come and Go, and in the time between then and now, there's been some changes in our world related to the ownership of our company from a Come and Go perspective. Maverick, which is based in Salt Lake City, Utah, purchased us September 1st, hence the desire to come back and do a little bit different site plan, more to their specifications. So I'll get through this real quick. I promise not to take a lot of your time, but I did want to give you an idea of who Maverick is because we're replacing the brand that was going to be a Come and Go. Maverick's, as I said, based in Salt Lake City, Utah. We're privately held, owned, and operated. We have about 800 stores in 21 states, currently growing in all of those states. And then in reference to this, we're growing in Michigan. We've got 6 stores open in Grand Rapids now and working towards more in this market. Known for fresh food, known for giving back to the community. We, as I said, we own and operate all of our stores, so we don't franchise anything. Everything is operated to our specifications and standards on a daily basis. Maintain our facilities very, very, very well. Build a beautiful building. Obviously, we'll dive into some of the materials and talk about that a little bit. We employ about 12,000 people across that footprint of stores, and we have two home office locations, as I said, one in Salt Lake City, one in Des Moines. Those people are, for the most part, benefited associates that are full-time. We don't really typically operate off of a part-time retail model, so a little bit different than a lot of retail. You can go ahead and flip that. We'll talk more about the exteriors. This will give you a little bit of an idea. You obviously have, along with the renderings here, you do have elevations, which will give you a better idea. This is as you go into the interior, you're going to be open, airy. We do brand all of our stores with internal graphics of the communities in which we operate. And so you'll see Michigan scenes up around the walls in the new stores in this market, which you can see a little bit in the background there. Win awards every year. USA Today gave us the #1 convenience store or gas station food award. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's an award we got. But and #5 in convenience. We're recognized every year by Gas Buddy as someone who has, or is a company who has the cleanest of restrooms. So you know, that's an important part of when people come into a store. They want to make sure that they have a clean place that they can use from a restroom perspective. We can pop through there. Mostly known for our food. We have a full kitchen in our stores, about 1,000 square, not quite 1,000 square foot in this particular footprint, but just under that, we'll do fresh made burritos, pizza, sandwiches, subs, full breakfast menu, and so really known for our food and continue to grow that part of our business as we expand into other markets. Our menu would not be like most convenience stores have in this market. We're going to be much more of a fresh food destination, which is typically attractive to a lot of communities in areas where that may not be the case. So from a safety perspective and environmental perspective, we are state-of-the-art as it relates to undergrad storage tanks, double-walled fiberglass tanks, non-permeable tubing to make sure that we get product where it needs to go in a safe way. We have interstitial monitoring on those so that any leak is immediately detected and that we can take care of those as necessary. We do vapor recovery as those delivery trucks bring fuel. We'll make sure to capture that vapor that comes out of those tanks so it doesn't get released into the air. Obviously, we'll meet all the landscaping requirements as needed. And then safety is a super important part of our business in terms of safety for associates, safety for our customers when they're on the lot in the store, the ability for them to get in and out from their car to the inside of the building safely is important. That glazing that you see, a lot of glass on the front of the store, that's so people can see in, but it's also so associates can see out. We do keep that very clean. We don't cover it with cigarette ads and beer ads and all of that stuff. What you see is what you get, and that's intentional to create a safe environment. So I'm going to be here all night, and not that I'll be taking that long, I guess, but certainly willing to answer any questions operationally or about facilities that you may have related to that. As you're aware, the location is northwest corner of 23 and Sass. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jamie, who is the site plan expert. So, thank you.
So some of the considerations when this was being redesigned for a Maverick were other uses in the area. So, looking at your sign, gateway to Anchor Bay, understanding, people will have their you know, boats in the marina, but also, you know, some people might drive over to this area. You know, some parking was added for people that might be towing something, people in RV, you know, maybe they're going to a state park, you know, heading east through this area. So that's, you know, kind of what the thought process was for the kind of added short-term, you know, larger vehicle parking on the west side of the site. You know, understanding questions about pedestrian access, you know, our intention here was to encourage people, you know, probably people especially on bikes, to you know, try to go toward the shortest path, shortest crossing, you know, head to the east side where the bike rack is, where the side entrance is. But, you know, we're here to, you know, talk through or brainstorm, you know, alternate striping that might achieve that desire for pedestrian access directly from 23. But the pavement on the site, you know, makes that a little more challenging. You know, general layout, kind of similar to what Dave touched on. This is oriented to the site plan, so there's a side door, a couple front sliding doors, and just another couple shots to kind of understand what the interior will look like. And then elevations, which, you know, we can get a discussion on materials here, just to kind of flip through these. So understand that, you know, there's some stone on the bottom that goes up the pillars along the front and sides, and then, you know, we can have a discussion about, I guess, if that meets the intent or if there's additional changes needed on those. And then this kind of helps illustrate the bollard question. This is an example of a store that has the yellow bollards at the ADA spaces. Otherwise, you know, they're brown covered for the rest of the locations. And just some quick examples of the fuel canopy proposed. And then the currently proposed materials and coloring for the hardy board and metal accent features in the stone. So, you know, this also, which we didn't touch on at the front end, you know, Venture's First Stop is their tagline, which is why they lean more into the, you know, outdoor activities, boating, ATVs, that they believe is a good fit for this location, and why there's some, you know, site plan adjustments to fit that intent. So I guess with that, you know, me and Dave are here to answer, discuss, you know, questions, outstanding issues, or other changes.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll bring it back up to the board. Mr. Demink?
I like what I see. I think it's gonna be a nice addition to that corner. Going in and do a lot of work, and like say with the name change and things like that, especially with the other one. I don't know if they're a competitor that's going down the street at 23 and Donner Sheets, because we don't.
Generally, yes.
Yeah. You didn't know that?
No, I'm aware of that. I'm just saying
Okay.
they're generally a competitor.
Yeah, because
yes.
we don't have them around here, so this is totally
Yep.
different for everybody around here with your design and what they had, so, I'm good with it so far. I see. I'll go to my rest of my board members to take their opinions.
Thank you. Mr. Renaud?
Yeah, just a couple of things real quick. The hardy board that you're putting on there, it's my understanding, and I'm not an expert in this by any stretch, but I know there's like, I guess there's a standard and then there's a commercial grade, which is a bit thicker. Do you know which version you're gonna be using for that, or there's like a standard that's, I think Mr. Leonard, I think you were talking about it earlier. You might know better than I do. It's two different styles of the hardy board.
Well, the hardy that we approved recently was a commercial grade. We've had issues about the thin hardy that came out originally. We just didn't like it. We put off expanding the materials that we were allowing. It used to be brick, mostly brick, and so we looked at allowing some alternative products because they're just built better. And the commercial stuff we saw is, Brian might remember, was the 1 3/4 inches.
Yeah, there was 3 different ones. Correct, there was 3, and we requested the thicker brand, just because the thinner ones tend to warp and, you know, so.
Rather than answer a question with something we don't know the actual specific specifications, can we get it to you administratively and let you know exactly what we use? My speculation is that we use the commercial grade.
Yeah, I don't
That's a
know.
request.
I don't know if Hardy has a version of that. I think this other product was Naichi, or was it?
Nichiha?
Yeah.
Nichiha, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's what
We're a
the,
little more familiar with Nichiha than we are with our, as we're learning the Hardy Planks.
I think
Yeah.
that's what the other business was gonna use,
Yeah.
was that product, and
Nichiha, yeah.
we felt a lot better about that. So if we're going to allow alternative products, we'd like to create some standards, so.
Correct.
Understood.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get some specs.
Okay, no, thanks for that. And then the only other question, two other questions I have. One, I didn't notice on the plan anywhere, there's no sort of loading dock, or how are you gonna take in deliveries? How is that gonna be handled?
Yeah, so the standard plan is to use the UST basin, like footprint, that's striped as a, primary loading zone. Otherwise, there's the side door for the public, side door for the rear. So somewhere back in that area is likely where loading would occur.
Somewhere along the curb between the dumpster and the access point would be the logical place for that because of the access point into
Yep.
the building for the deliveries is right there.
Yeah, I was assuming that, I just didn't want to.
Yep, no, that is accurate.
And then my last question, this is more just from a personal issue, is how come I don't see any charging stations being installed here?
So that, Maverick doesn't include that initially. If demand warrants it, it's something they consider adding, but that's just, not a part of their initial plan at this point.
To speak a
So,
little bit.
I'm interested in it, just so you know, but
Yeah,
for what
sure.
that's worth.
Well, that's fair, yeah. I mean, in general terms, obviously, the future of our world is going to involve electric charging stations in some form or another. And we plan for it ahead of time. In some cases, we've run conduit to make sure that we have it in place for the future. In this situation, there's two locations that would make logical sense. One would be just outside the door that faces east, or the parking spaces that are outside along the east side of the parking lot there. Those would be the two places that would be most logical to put them in the future as demand warrants. We would typically not proactively put them in place unless they fit into a particular network of an existing user that we partner with, right? So as that evolves and develops, then we retrofit to do it. In the come-and-go world, we had just run conduit ahead of time to be able to facilitate it. In those two locations, it doesn't interfere with any sort of gas lines, and so it's relatively simple to accomplish. But it will definitely be a part of our world as we move forward.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Carr?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I thought overall the site plan was nice. I didn't have which is unusual because usually I got a lot of comments. But it was very similar to the come and go.
Correct,
So,
yep.
I mean, and you already made those changes for us with the DXL lane and all that. So, so overall, I thought the site plan was pretty nice. I understood why you put the bike where you put it. I mean, I kind of put that all together. And I don't think it's a terrible spot because our residential areas are either coming down Sass from the north or coming up Sass from the south, which means they would cross at that corner, and you're not going to stop people from going, driving diagonal with their bike across. So, I mean, so I didn't have an issue with that. I thought Giffords Webster did a nice job as well, capturing a couple things like the loading docks and all that. But I was going to comment on the Hardy board just for two things, but Mark did a nice job covering that as well. But yeah, we're definitely, because right now our ordinance hasn't changed, so it's usually brick or better. And we are skeptical of the Hardy board, just because we got to make sure the product is the right stuff. Because I have seen that product used with the thinner gauges, and it does deflect, and the ends never match up, and they look terrible, to be honest with you, once they're installed. So we definitely will want to look at that, and I assume, again, that board is pre-finished, correct, from the factory?
In this case, it
color-wise?
would be, yes. Yep.
Yeah, because nothing is to be painted on our,
You had requested previously a pre-finished board. so
Correct,
there was no
yeah, we
painting
want-
on site, yeah, and you
Yep.
didn't want any of that board, I think, to hit the ground or be near the ground.
Yeah,
where
we
it could
usually
absorb
like block or something,
water,
or
if I
conk,
remember
yeah,
correctly.
yep, so no, overall, I honestly, I thought it was nice. I figured, why else you wanted the trailer parking with the boating and the camping, because you will get a lot of camping traffic going on, 23 Mile Road to the east, going up to Algonac State Park, so hopefully, yeah, that'll work out well for you, but overall, yeah, no, I thought nothing that Giffords didn't catch, and I thought it was pretty good.
I looked
Thanks.
up the boat registrations on that side of the lake, and it's 150,000. Blew my mind.
Thank you. Mr. Jaworski?
No, I'm excited to see quality, both of the gas stations that we've reviewed over the last 3-4 months. It's just, it's exciting to see a quality product going in, and a gas station with food and clean facility. So it looks like a good plan. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Klinowski.
Yeah, it looks like a nice project, and look forward to having you in the community. Thank you.
I don't have much to say. The having better food served at a gas station, definitely people have been wanting more variety and more restaurants. So I guess this is a backdoor way into getting different foods. So it looks like the bar has been raised on the gas stations. So
Yeah.
it's nice to see. Thank you.
Mr. LaBelle?
If we can go back to building materials, as you saw in Giffords' letter, you have 19% of the facade is stone on 23 Mile Road, 60% hardy board, and 21% glazing. On Sass Road, you've got 23% stone, 70% hardy board, 3% doors, and 4% glazing. Is there a way that we can bump that stone up on 23 Mile Road? I'd like to see more stone on 23 Mile Road. And secondly, the dumpster enclosure, I believe that you're calling out for split-face block on the dumpster enclosure. Our ordinance does require similar building materials. Are we okay with split-face block on the dumpster enclosure?
That's okay. I did see that, but I was okay. From my perspective, I did. Yeah, no, I understand. I did see that as well. The problem is I'm personally, of everybody has their own opinion. Split face is a nice product, and since it's color impregnated and everything, I didn't have an issue with it, with the location, and also just because of the materials they're having, there's no brick. So I didn't think hardy board would look very good.
And I didn't see that it was color impregnated. Is this block being painted, or is it?
No.
Or is it a pre-colored product? Because we do not allow painting a block.
I assume
And that's
it's-
where I was going with this
Okay.
Well, we will verify, but I'm 99.9% sure it is color permeated.
Yeah.
Okay. Then that's
of
something
that
else
color.
that I'm going to want to see.
Yeah, we wouldn't
Honestly,
be a painted product.
I would like to see a submittal on the material, on the hardy material. I'd like to see more stone on the building.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that that block is not, that we're not painting
Okay.
block or brick anywhere on that property.
Absolutely.
So I'm really not comfortable with giving an approval this evening until we have that information, because now we are missing the photometric plan. There's a few things that we're missing here, so if everybody else is in favor of it, I'll go along with the crowd. Thanks.
So
Thank you.
So to address the increase of stone on the front facing 23 Mile, correct?
I would like to see more stone on 23 Mile Road, more, because our ordinance does require brick or better
Yeah, sure.
for a lot of it, but we have been allowing more of the, because products are changing.
You
The
mentioned
building material is changing from when our ordinance was
And you
written.
said you had researched it as well.
So we've been researching it, and with the Nichiha, and there's, metals and things like that. There's no ephes on here. It's all a good durable material, but I want to see what it is. And I would like to see more stone, just to get a little bit closer to our ordinance.
Possibly raise it up to maybe the door height?
That's your decision. Whatever your architect, whatever your people feel that would look best in the building.
Certainly open-minded to create a solution that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I thought the overall plan was nice. The landscaping plan was good. And that's all I have to say. Thank you. Are we going to vote on this tonight, or are we going to wait till he gets the change?
So the items that are required, that Rick was bringing up, that can be handled administratively with Jonathan if we have some parameters of, here's the 4 or 5 things that we'd like to see on the plans. The brick, he just said how he was gonna bring it up to the door. I don't know if we have to see, or the stone, if we have to see that, or if that's acceptable.
I would recommend that we give them, our typical up to like 4 meetings. If they choose to come back in 2 weeks, because they can get the information in time, I think that would probably be the more comfortable approach.
Is that your motion?
I didn't make a technical motion, I'm just talking right now. I'm just giving my feedback. Typically, we don't do that administratively because our ordinance has not changed. We haven't done that research yet. We haven't done that. It is subjective to the board right now. So, personally, I think they should be providing the product because we're approving something that currently really doesn't apply with our ordinance or complies with the ordinance. So I think that they need to provide the products and the revised elevation that reflects, the comfort level to the board. That's my recommendation.
You know, hearing Brian say that, I agree with him, because the last time we dealt with the thicker commercial, Nishiha, we actually had product information, and it was all part of the overall plan. So if we can get this turned around quickly, and we'll address it at the next meeting.
And if you remember, Mr. Leonard, we didn't even catch that thickness until we made them provide that, right? So that's.
We knew it
kinda
was
like-
thicker, but
Yeah,
we didn't realize there was
exactly.
3 thicknesses.
But remember, they gave us the 3, and then they were like, which one are you going with? He's like, oh, we're doing the middle. We're like, no.
Yeah, so I agree. Until we get this nailed down, we are allowing the flexibility to do this, and we'd like to stay on that path and just make sure that we're consistent. So, thank you.
So, okay with that, I will entertain a motion to postpone.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to postpone making a decision this evening, giving the applicant an opportunity to address all of the items outlined this evening. You have the list. Would you like us to go through it again as part of the motion, or are you all set?
I understand the building material is a paramount question. I guess if we can answer the bollard color, we could strike that off the list, whether, represent it one way or another. So yeah, building material, pedestrian access.
I'll give you my list. As part of my motion, we would like to see not only the building material, but if you can provide us with samples, submittals, things of that nature as part of your resubmittal to us. We need a photometric drawing, a photometric plan of what was going on. We'd like to see some way or some attempt for pedestrian traffic off of 23 Mile Road so that we can make sure that our residents are safe. And then the elevation changes to the building to include more stone on the front of the building on 23 Mile Road. I think on SAS we're fine. Personally, I feel that on SAS we're fine. If anybody else wants to make any other decisions or comments. With that'll be my motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Carr. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentations, reports, and discussions. Planners report. Ms. Osborne, you have anything? Or Jill?
I don't. Jill just returned from APA, so she might have something.
Yes, I just got back today from the American Planning Association's annual conference. It was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and this morning in Minneapolis. 4,000 planners from all over the country and even different parts beyond our country's borders coming together to talk about the issues that face our communities today and in the near future and in the distant future. It was a really interesting conference, a lot of good sessions, a lot of thoughts and topics including energy and sustainability, food systems. Housing is a huge topic still, so it was very interesting. A lot of the folks, we met people from all over the country dealing with everybody's got their own unique challenges, each community, and that's one of my questions that I ask folks when I meet them. Oh, where are you from? Okay, what are the biggest challenges facing your community? And it's just really interesting to hear how different parts of the country and different communities of different sizes, how they face their challenges and strategies that they're working on to try to make their places better. So it was a good conference, and we look forward to sharing different topics with you in the year ahead. I would just note that the National Planning Conference in 2026 is going to be in Detroit, which is a big deal. It's been, I believe, 1972-ish was the last time it was here in Detroit. So again, like 4,000 to 5,000 planners from all over the country coming here to our region, and it's going to be very exciting. So you'll probably be hearing about that more, into the later part of next year. So
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Palin, do you have anything? No. I'll bring it back to the board for Planning Commissioners' comments, Mr. Demink?
I'm good. Our next meeting is what, the 7th of May? I will not be here. I'll be on my way to DC for the Police Memorial Unity Tour, so see you guys later in the month.
Thank you. Mr. Renaud?
Just a real quick thank you to Mr. Siebert for reminding me about my specificity needs. I knew it, we've talked about it, and I had the wrong form up on my iPad, so
I know you're
I
gonna
was
hate
drawing
your,
a blank.
I know you're gonna hate your lawyer for that, but it's the right, you just gotta remember that the world that I play in, when you hand a judge a motion or a record, the judge wants to know, counsel, why did your client make this decision? And the better the record is, the better opportunity we have to defend what the commission does. And so I do that not to be difficult. I do it because it makes the saleability of the commission's recommendation and the board's ultimate decision easier in court. I have a handful of cases right now where I have 2 or 3 where I read the record. I'm the insurance defense attorney. I get in, the record's done. I read the record, and I'm calling the township attorney saying, I don't understand any of this. What happened? And it's easy to fix. So I'm not doing it again to be difficult, but if you continue to do this as you are, I mean, this is a very good commission. I'm in front of a lot of them, and this is a very good planning commission, and the attention to detail matters, and so.
No, I appreciate it. Like I said, I was out of sorts and didn't have the right thing up on my iPad, so caught me off guard, but thank you.
Mr. Carr?
Nothing new, thanks.
Mr. Jaworski? Mr. Klanowski?
Yeah, on the gas station that we just did, Ms. Osborne, did you say that the submissions or the revised plans came in the same day or today? Was it?
I believe they came in yesterday. Sarah was out of the office yesterday, so we received them today and couldn't get to them. So.
Yeah, I'm seeing a pattern here. I've seen a few of them now where these revisions come in a day before or the day of the meeting, and I'm becoming increasingly uncomfortable with that situation because it doesn't give us time to review it. We have other work, other jobs of our own, and when it comes in a day or so before or the day of the meeting, we don't have time to review this stuff. And I would tell the planning department to kind of emphasize to the applicants, get it ahead of time a little bit. Don't wait till the last minute on this stuff.
We're working on timelines and making some clarification on timelines. Sometimes it happens where we're under the impression that that's going to be their final plans and that's what they want in front of the commission, and then they submit the revised ones last minute. So we need to do a better job of making it clear that, these are the plans. They need to be clear this is the final plan that they want going in front of the planning commission and not week of. So some miscommunication, but we can do a better job on our part in clarifying that.
Yeah, and I think it was the right decision to postpone this for 2 weeks, especially given that situation, so.
Thank you.
Yep,
Mr. Leonard?
I agree with what Mr. Klonowski just stated, and I'm glad that Mr. Carr stepped up and told us to slow the cart down a little bit, so. It just means that we're all working together. It's a good machine, so thank you.
Mr. LaBelle?
Looking for volunteers for pre-planning. Mr. Leonard and
Mr. Klanowski?
Mr. Klanowski. And I've got a couple more things, a couple more comments. I've been noticing I know that our ordinance really hasn't addressed this yet, but I've been noticing a billboard truck going up and down 23 Mile Road, driving through the parking lot at Home Depot, and it's a billboard, a changing billboard on the side of a truck. That's signage going up and down the street. Should we address that in our ordinance to stop this from happening? We don't allow our tax-paying tenants, our people who own stores and things like that, to to do what they're doing, changing the billboard as large as it is in front of their businesses, but yet here you've got a business who is in another community advertising up and down our roads and going through our parking lots. Do we even have a chance of changing that, stopping that?
Well, as I recall, your sign ordinance is a regulatory ordinance, right? Yes, I think so. If it's on property that's not, for instance, if they're going up and down, going through your community in I-94, I would say your chances are 0. You don't have any jurisdiction over 94. If they're going up and down Gratiot, which is M what, okay, it's for sure, we don't have any jurisdiction over public roads. But if they're pulling onto a piece of property where you now have landowner X who's got a commercial business, and he or she has a truck whose sign changes all the time, I think that's legitimate. This is not too far removed. We just, in Washington, within the last 6 or 8 months, adopted a food truck ordinance. It's somewhat, I shouldn't say it's controversial, it was there for a bit, but many communities now are doing that, where you have, somebody says, well, geez, it's just a truck, it's just a food company, it's a good humor truck, except it's not a good humor truck anymore. It's a retail business that's on wheels, and there's fire department issues with it. They may sit on a particular site for months at a time. So we addressed it from a zoning standpoint. And so the fact that you've got a sign that may not be permitted in a particular zoning district, and somebody parks their truck there and leaves that sign there for 6 weeks, they now have a temporary sign on their property, which would clearly violate your ordinance. The difficulty, of course, is going to be drafting it, but I have total confidence in Giffords-Webster to put something together so that I can criticize it. Okay. But yeah, I think you can do it, but it's going to be a little bit of, this isn't going to be a pull it out of the book ordinance. This is going to be something that's going to have to be tailored, but I think you can do it.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
And secondly, has there been any more consideration for solar and battery storage? Writing some ordinance for solar and battery storage in our township?
I got mine first. Go ahead. I was just going to say, we've been talking about it, so yes.
Okay.
You'll see something, I would say, soon. Planning to plan, as we say. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let me just weigh in on the solar, because I am up to my eyeballs right now in litigation on solar energy facilities. There, for up until November of last year, and Jill and her team probably know more about this than I do, or at least as much as I do, you could regulate under your zoning ordinance solar facilities. So if somebody wanted to come in and put in 50 acres of solar panels, you could certainly regulate that under the Township Zoning Enabling Act. The problem was, as companies would come in, I'm not talking about retail use, I'm talking about somebody that comes in and sells electricity, and Rick, you know more about this than I do, but they want to sell it to wholesalers. So they come in and they put in 100 acres of panels. Local communities were not allowing it, because this room would be full of people, and you'd have a side room full of people, and they don't want solar facilities in their backyard. And so the Michigan legislature said, that's fine, we'll take it away from you. And they adopted what's referred to as Act 233, and they didn't preempt the field. They did not take away all of local units' government's ability to regulate solar. They took away a substantial portion of it, and without getting into all the details, if a developer comes in and wants to put in a couple 100 acres of solar, if you even had that available in Chesterfield, and you denied them, this Act 233 gives them another bite at the apple by going to the Michigan Public Service Commission, where they can, and that doesn't become effective until November 29th of this year. But if they came before you, you turned them down, they'd say, that's fine. We're going to go to Lansing. They go to the MPSC, they could get approved for it and just jump right over Chesterfield and come in and get it approved. So there is less really that local units can do now on solar than they could pre-November of last year. You gonna make it? So when you do that, just be aware that state legislature has taken a big old hand of government and taken it away from local units' ability to regulate as much as they could have a year ago. So your ability to regulate has been compressed substantially. So, but, so.
And I would only add in that that's not too dissimilar from, except perhaps in its appearance, from things like wireless communications, where, if you remember, the days when people wanted to put in a cell tower, the people would fill this room and they'd fill the other room, and that became something that was problematic for building out that network. So it's a similar kind of situation. There are some things that can be done still at the local level, but it's not very much, to your point. So, but there are some things that we can do, and there's some things we can talk about.
Now, Mr. Siebert, have you been running into any litigation or changes for storage of energy? They're producing all this energy during the day and with these solar panels, and they've got to store it someplace. They've got to store that energy somehow. Lithium batteries, things of that nature. They're installing large storage facilities, battery banks. They're using batteries that aren't being used in cars anymore, using that to store the power. They're actually building a small or a medium-sized building is storing power.
Those fall within the definition of the solar facilities that are regulated by Act 233. They're not only talking about panels, they're talking about the conduit. And again, you're in the electrical business, I'm not. I sat through a meeting 2 weeks ago and I learned more about solar than I ever could have thought I could have learned. But when the Michigan legislature enacted 233, they created a definition of these solar facilities, and they're talking about, by the way, 50 megawatts or more. That's a pretty big facility. But there's some break-even point at which a commercial company like Edison or Consumers or whoever's not going to come in and they're not going to build a solar farm on 2 acres. You're not going to build it. You got to generate enough energy to sell it wholesale, and I don't know what that is, but the ones that I've seen are 300, 500, 800, 1,000 acres where they're coming in, and that wouldn't be practical likely in this community. But they have defined the facility to include all of that, the storage, the batteries, the inverters, not just the panels. The panels are easy. They're only 12 to 15 feet tall. And you can screen those, and they're out of sight, out of mind. But these inverters make noise, and there's other things that go with it. There's, there's some groundwater issues if one of them is damaged, and there's a decommissioning procedure and all these other things. So, but that's all included, and that would be if they went to Chesterfield and you regulated it and you denied them, they could go to the MPSC and ask for approval, and if they get it, there's nothing you do about it.
You really want to go down a rabbit hole? Forget about solar and go into nuclear, the substations. Be prepared.
I don't really have anything. I just wanted to make one comment. If anybody has driven down the freeway from 23 to 26 Mile and look at that massive building that we approved a few years back, how big it is, and all the panels they put in the last 3 weeks, it's pretty impressive. So somebody should take a ride down there and check it out. With that, I will make a motion to adjourn at 8:19. We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor?